Hopefulness 2.0, August 6th. I have little plants in my house. Little tiny succulents. They came in little boxes that are like, I think I mentioned it in the last video, I could be wrong, I don't know. They came in these little bastards, super tiny. And I was like, that's not really gonna do much for like feeding them and stuff. And so I was like, all right, how can I go about getting some, planter things? And so I noticed that Instacart delivers through, they deliver Lowe's through Instacart. And so I was like, all right, let's do that. Let's get some Lowe's loving. Hold on a second. I just got back from the liquor store, picking up my Mark's Harder. Seems to be like a weekly thing now, which is okay. I mean, it's delicious. This one's okay. The strawberry, they didn't have the cranberry like I wanted. Cranberry is like their best. I would say like, of the typical staple flavors, their lemonade is just right in the right area, but I like their cranberry the most. So anyway. And I got a big old Miracle-Gro bag of pot mix. Twice as big. Maybe we'll see. I don't know. I kind of didn't plant them per the instructions correctly, but I'm sure they'll be fine. The one thing about succulents though is that like you can overwater them and they can start rotting and stuff, and so you don't want to do that. And so like what I'm probably going to do is like this Saturday I might take them out, check the roots, because like what I should have done, what I did do was I just dumped in a bunch of potting mix. I think it was like something close to like 150 170 grams worth or whatever I put on the scale, weighed it out. Because I just wanted I want it to look kind of nice, and the reason why I'd even consider this is because like there's a spot that I deliver to every day, and they have a couple of little plants here and there. And I was like, I should do that. Yeah, I should do that. And so I got some terracotta pots. They were like $3 each, not even. I think they were slightly less than $3 each, and the potting mix, I mean, this bag wasn't even $10. I think it was like $8 in tax, or eight and change plus tax, something like that. I got these OXO Good Grips bag clips too, because I was like, well, let's get one of those at least. And then I got these little guys that I haven't even used yet. They're just kind of chilling right now. I was like, all right, yeah, we could do that. Have a little assortment. Because I've needed bag clips in some way or another in the past. Hey, so that'll help me in some ways or another, I'm sure. It's just nice to have a couple of tools around the house, other than myself. I haven't actually looked up to see what kind of plants they are, succulent-wise. They're obviously different. Let me get you a better close-up again. I kind of like this one just because of how like they're all somewhat symmetrical in some way and slightly asymmetrical. This one, the taller one, like obviously it grabs my attention more, but I kind of like Mr. Spiky here. It makes me think of Lavos from Chrono Trigger. So yeah, there's that. That's going on. I've had 2 weeks of driving now. Not too bad. Like the second day, I did have a very tiny collision on property. I backed up into the little fence that we have, and fortunately, didn't really cause any damage or anything. Like the fence is kind of knocked over a little bit. And I did get written up for it because like I didn't realize it hit the thing. I thought I kind of hit the trees, and like a policy unbeknownst to me at the time was no matter what, even if you think you hit something, mention it, because it'll avoid the situation. It'll avoid the write-up and all that stuff. And so, but it is what it is. I'm not gonna, like, one of my coworkers did bring up something I think was relevant, and I'm not sure how to relay this info, but he did mention that it seems like a bit of a conflict of interest for an employer, especially the supervisor, to actually run the piss test, the drug test. So I didn't even blow, which is funny, but like it wouldn't have mattered because like I didn't. It was like over a day, and I piss clean anyway, so it's not a problem. But it's like, at the same time, based on that very same employee who's been there the longest, like, there's not a lot of, the communication can sometimes be pretty subpar. I mean, my current supervisor is trying, and I mean, like, I don't mean to say that because, like, I feel in some way, like, beholden to him or anything like that. It actively feels like he's trying to make things better. Now, to what degree, I feel like it's more about productivity and sort of like, what's the way that, okay, so if he cares about the workers, it doesn't seem like it. However, and I think this is where sort of like the conflict comes into play, which, it's why I'm able to at least discern it, is that his actions at the very least appear to care about the workers, but not any individual workers. Like, he'll be like, okay, I want to make sure that, like, this person who said, like, this is a thing that they're not going to yield on. Like, we're going to make sure that that person can kind of get what they want. But, like, it's not about the person. It's about the process. It's about making sure everything runs well. That's the angle that I'm seeing. And who knows? Maybe, like, in time, once things start running better, then things like talking about pay, it gets you nowhere. Even though everybody should be getting paid more. Like, everybody. I don't mean just me. I don't mean the people at my job. I mean everybody. Except for the rich people. They can fuck off and start losing some money. But anyway. It's not bad. But it is an interesting mix. They have a pineapple mandarin, and it's just like, it's too biting. It's not so much sour. It's almost acidic. It's almost like you're drinking, like, they have a lemonade, and that one feels like it's just balanced right, whereas the pineapple mandarin one feels like it just goes overboard. And it's like, I'm gonna eat your tongue. I would thank you to not, please. I'm gonna be making some cookies later today. Pull out that dough and check it. Actually. Alright. I could say I forgot, but in a way I do, because that's ADHD for you. Ta-da! I have left the beaters in there, so it'll be easier to get it broken up and turned into stuff. But like, it's super brown because in the flour I added 10 grams of cocoa. Because one, I need to get this stuff out. I mean, I don't even know if there's much of an expiration date. I do like the fact that they have this little box here. That really helps. Hershey's Perfectly Chocolate Cake. 2 cups of sugar. 1 3/4 cups all-purpose flour. 3/4 a cup of Hershey's cocoa. 1.5 tablespoons baking powder as well as baking soda. 1 teaspoon salt. Sorry, not tablespoons, teaspoons of each. So 1.5 teaspoons each of baking powder and soda. 2 eggs, 1 cup milk. 1/2 cup vegetable oil. 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. 1 cup boiling water. That doesn't sound bad. But yeah, so I mixed some of that in there. That's why it's like super brown. I'm getting it all kind of like homogenous in that. Because it's, in a way, it's like a 3-layer chocolate, if you will. Because you have the 100% cocoa mixed within the cookie itself. And then you have the semi-sweet and the milk chocolate chips mixed in. You know, sort of creating that sort of heterogeneity, as Adam Ragusi likes to say. But yeah, overall the driving thing, not too bad. The communication thing, it's improving. You know, it's like, even the guy that I normally talk to about my drives, I'm talking to less and less, just within the last 2 weeks, because, oh shit. I think I was supposed to talk to somebody on Friday when I got back, but it didn't work out. That's right. So like, because of the nature of my job, you know, I have like set things I'm gonna do, which is the lunch deliveries. It's not bad. You know, like sometimes I still forget like how far I have to drive, because it's not really that far. It's only like 11 miles total between locations. And so I drive to the furthest one first. That way they can just kind of have their stuff and not have had, you know, potentially half an hour or whatever their shit cooled off, while also being the furthest away. So like at the very least they're getting theirs earlier, slightly on the warmer side. And when I first started, we had these, you know, like milk crates basically, and that was how I was delivering them. Now we've got these like nice little black foam. I don't know why they're using black. I mean, I guess they want the sun to keep it heating them up. I don't know. But unfortunately, the black foam things are just a little bit bigger than the last ones, so they make it a little bit more difficult to maneuver around. But I'll figure it out. So I take one out to La Crescenta, and then I come back into Pasadena and drop off at 3 different locations. Then I go pick up some guys from one of the transitional living. Well, it's kind of like, I don't know exactly what that location is. It seems more like a hub than it is like a living situation. Because it doesn't seem like residential treatment, and it doesn't seem like it's it's also not like a sober living, which we have one. We have one specific sober living. We have multiples actually, but there's one that I deliver to. They're a transitional living, and you know, there's like small little bungalows that are sort of attached and whatnot. They're not attached to little individuals. I think there's like 3 people per house or 2 or something like that. I don't remember. But anyway, or maybe up to 4. Doesn't really matter. So I deliver all of that, and then I pick up the transitional guys that live in the bungalows from like sort of our hub location, which I think is like where the administration and all that kind of stuff is, it seems like. But apparently there's also like people that are there for one reason. I don't know. It's still somewhat ephemeral to me, even though I've had to go up there a couple of times now. But yeah, I'm just kind of getting the lay of the land at the moment. It's nice that I get, like, it's not exactly the same every single day. Sometimes it's more the same than it is others. But yeah, so far, you know, and I'm sure in the next couple of months, once I really kind of get into it, you know, I'll be able to find like time to do other things and stuff. And I mean, I've been picking up like, sometimes I'll pick up on the video games and stuff like that, or you know, do some kind of like on Monday last week I needed to finish up some online training for the job. So there was that as well. But yeah, overall, not too shabby. And like I was saying before, supervisor, you know, like I talk to him more now about what my next potential, you know, task or errand might be. Like, so Friday, early in the week last week, it was decided that I was going to do dinner delivery on Friday, which is pretty much the same. I just don't have to pick anybody up. No big deal. And I get to use the Prius, which I got to do, like, I think it was on Tuesday. I think for whatever reason, the normal driver, he had to do something else. And this is something that can happen where, like, a thing needs to occur that wasn't scheduled. And so somebody needs to do a thing. So, like, maybe I'm set to do something. And they're like, well, we can get Justin to do that, this other thing instead. You can go ahead and do the thing now or in the next 10 minutes or whatever it is. Because, like, what they're getting me to do mostly is if there needs to be something that's a little on the bigger side, I guess. It all depends. The Prius, so we have like multiple different vehicles. Basically, I have 4 that I can use. We have the Prius, which is the car, of course. And then we have a Toyota Sienna, which is like a minivan. It's a great little minivan, too. And then there's a Ford Transit, which is kind of like a big work van. And we use that when we need to haul like a lot of people for one reason or another. And then there's this like giant, like, I don't remember what the hell, it's like the unmarked van of vans. And it's got a big ass tail end on it and everything. And I have yet to drive that, and I am not looking forward to the day that I have to drive that, because that thing's fucking huge. And driving the Transit in of itself is already, like, I'm getting accustomed to it, but at the same time, like, I'm still not comfortable driving it. But I'm less hesitant now to drive the Transit than I used to be. So, occasionally, like, so Friday, going back, Monday I had learned I'm going to be doing Friday dinner delivery. Okay, cool. I've never done dinner delivery. Apparently I'll be using the Prius. Cool. I have never driven a Prius. Let's see how that works out. Well, come Tuesday, I have to do dinners for whatever reason. And via the Prius. And I was like, oh, cool. I get to drive the Prius. Let's see how this works out. Actually, I did drive the Prius on the first, I want to say Thursday or Friday of mine, because I had to drive a new intake. And it was a weird car for sure. Like, everything is like kind of right up in the middle in the front, which is kind of annoying because there's some stuff I like to see in the front of me, like odometer, speed, all that stuff. But because there's a lot of me looking over that way and not just looking down, just kind of glancing back and forth. Cars are stupid. I'll get into that though. But anyway, so I drive the Prius, and it has like this little stick shift that you just kind of like pull down and then either go up for reverse, side for neutral, or down for drive, and then it just pops back into place. It doesn't stay, which is weird for me. And it's kind of like out here, and it's a short little stick, and I'm just like, who designed this? This is weird. And then the park is a button, which I was like, where the fuck is the park? Like, it took me a good like 60 seconds to figure out what this fucking park button was. It's right there. It's just I didn't know, because I didn't know what I was looking for. It's kind of dumb. And then, like, it'll show you if it's charging the battery or if the battery and the engine are charging the, powering the wheels and stuff like that, which is, like, interesting, but at the same time, it's almost too interesting and it's distracting. So I end up looking at it a lot, and I really shouldn't. I need to be looking at the fucking road. You know, I decided to pay for a month of Spotify Premium just to kind of see how it, you know, changed my experience. And, like, so far it's not bad. I'm probably not going to renew. I mean, I like being able to skip a ton of songs and skip that back through a song and stuff. And I like that, but at the same time, like, paying almost $11, I think now, actually, that's a lot for that level of convenience. Like, the level of convenience is not significant. Sure, I'm not getting any ads, but at the same time, I'm just like, this is kind of too much money for this. Like, if I could get the student discount, yeah, maybe I'd probably just go back to that, no problem. But anyway, so, like, I was supposed to drive, I did the delivery. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. It's got a lot more oomph to it. You know, it's much more responsive, and it's like, yeah, this is why I like driving cars. You know, I like driving cars because they're lower to the ground. I like driving cars because they're generally more responsive. They're generally better at accelerating and decelerating and the like. And so everything about it, it works with my brain, which is 60 to 1 to 60. And so, like, driving the van, it feels like it's going 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 10 to 20 sometimes, and then 21 to 30 on its own. Like, it's not a bad vehicle. All vehicles are bad vehicles for the most part. Most cars, most four-wheeled automobiles are bad. They're mostly designed terribly. One of the reasons why one of the things that I find to be the most terrible design, and I do not understand why this is still somehow a problem. So, I would say the best vehicle that we have right now is the Toyota Sienna. It's one of the newest vehicles we have. And for the most part, virtually everything can be done with less than like a foot or a foot and a half of movement. The one thing that it won't fucking do, though, or won't let me do, which I honestly think should never need me to move my hand more than like 6 inches, is to change the rear view fucking mirror. And it's one of those like sort of semi-OnStar ones, so you can't just like put your hand on it and move it because there's buttons and shit. And I don't know what those buttons do. I'm pretty sure none of those buttons really do anything. They probably don't have a subscription to whatever service it is. But first, since I don't know what those buttons do, and second, since they're there, I kind of don't want to mess with them. But at the same time, I know it's powered. But I still have to move it with my fucking hand, which moves my head. Which then puts me out of position from seeing the mirror. At the very least, I have a little knob on the sides where I can be like, okay, left mirror. I can just be doing my thing. I can look over at the mirror and I can, okay, we're good. And then I can do the thing with the right mirror. All I gotta do is turn my head. That's it. And my hand is already, it's barely a foot away, so it doesn't cause me to move my body. Doing this makes me move my body. It makes my head move out of position. I've got to move forward and usually slide it to the right. And it fucks with my perception. So every time I move it, I got to move it back. And it doesn't, reasonably so, it does not move easily. But because it doesn't move easily, it's also one of those points where if you do move it, sometimes you're going to regularly you're going to overshoot it. And it's fucking annoying. And I'm like, what? I have volume control. I have volume and like radio channel and like skip to the next song controls on the steering wheel. Why? Why is the mirror not associated with the steering wheel at all? Like, what the fuck? It's the dumbest thing. And I hate it. And it's one of the many reasons why cars are still terrible. Like, there's so many cars that I see on the road that, like, their brake light stops working and instead starts blinking when they're turning. Like, no, that's stupid. Use both. Because if for some reason that light goes out, how am I going to know when they're turning or stopping? You need redundancies, not fancy shit. You know what's cool when you do fancy shit and redundancies? I saw this on a couple of Jeeps. Jeeps always have that one tire in the back that nobody ever fucking uses. Because they're not actually going off-road. They just want to drive a cool-looking car. But in the middle, when it was stopping, like when they were stopping, it grew. There was a light in it, and it grew in size. And it has like multiple LEDs so that it wasn't just like line. It was like, kind of almost like a flower in a way. And then on top of it, when they were stopped and they had their turn signal on, one side of it kind of pulsed outward. That was fucking cool. And I realized, I knew what was happening just looking at that. And that in of itself is a redundancy because both sides were working fine like they were supposed to. So not only in the middle of the damn ass end of the Jeep, but also on the normal area, on the corner of the Jeep where normally your lights are at, there's the brake light that's just on, and then the blinker that's also blinking, and it's synced with the thing inside the middle of the tire. It was so fucking cool. And I'm like, this isn't just cool for coolness points. This is cool because it's practical. It works. It was handy. It was efficient. It told me what the light is supposed to do. Another thing that cars really fucking need is to get rid of the fucking horn button where it's at. I should not have to take my hand off and push it. And you can't just barely tap it and get some sound out of it. It depends on how hard you're hitting during that tap. Why can't I just have a button that's just like, I hit it and it does like a chirp, like a beep. That's it. That's all. Because 90% of the time, that's all you need your horn for, is to signal somebody something. Like, hey, you might want to check the light. Now, you might be like, well, what if somebody cuts you off? Most of the time, we don't need the horn for what we think we do. If somebody cuts you off and laying on the horn is what you think you're supposed to do, you're using the horn wrong. They know you're there. Now, maybe there could be another slightly more, worried sounding horn. It's like, oh my God, don't do that, bro. Something that kind of gets that attention. Mark Rober made a great video that was like, okay, first you get like just a quick little honk, then you get like, and it's all buttons. It's like one button is just like a basic honk, but it's like a beep. Another, so like that one can basically just be like, hey, warning, horn, car, potential danger, but I'm not here to make your day worse. Then he has another one, which is basically just R2-D2, which is perfect because it's like nice and friendly, and it's like, hey, yeah, go ahead, no big deal. It's fun, it's jovial, which we cannot communicate with the brr. That does not communicate anything other than brr. It's abrupt, it's loud, it's angry. That's what it is. Car horns are still so fucking passé for what they are and how old they are conceptually. It's like, I get it. You want something simple because it's cheaper, But can we communicate to other people, please? Like, in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, when I was working as a security guard and I had a lot of time to myself, before automated cars were really a thing, I came up with this idea that was like, what if I could communicate to somebody in their other car something beyond just the noise of a horn? Because that's all I had at the time. I was like, because smart cars and automated cars, electric cars and stuff like that were still becoming like a thing, and they weren't really a thing as they are now. And I'm like, what if I could like tell the people in another car that their headlights are off, or I could tell them that one of their brake lights is off, something like that. Like, why can't I communicate to the people on the road useful information? We don't need cops to do that, by the way. I know that that's usually like, oh, you have a taillight out, then that means the police need to let you know. No, the police aren't going to pull you over to let you know your fucking taillight's out. They're pulling you over to see if they can write you a ticket for something. They're there to make money. They're there to be enforcement, not encouragement, not communication. That's not their job. We need better communication, and cops do not do that even remotely in an acceptable manner. They just don't. Police are law enforcement officers, not law encouragement officers, not law communication officers. They are not there to help you. They're there to make money. That is their job. That's what they do. That's why the prison system is overstuffed with people who really don't need to be in fucking prison, because that person's existence creates revenue. And if that person has been sentenced for a crime, they can now go make slave wages, or simply make no wages and thus be literally a slave, because what do they get? They get food, housing, and work. Because even though the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, it has an asterisk. And it says, except for punishment of a crime. Paraphrasing. So as long as you find somebody, as long as you can find somebody and find that somebody did a crime that puts them in jail, now they can be a slave. Legally. Per the 13th Amendment. I'm going to put these up while it runs. So why does this all matter? Well, it matters because we don't communicate with each other on the road. We can't. Police unions and lobbies are so fucking powerful that if they start seeing their income and their revenue dip a little bit, they're going to be like, okay, who's fucking us over? We can't let that happen. We got to make sure that we keep making money however we can. It used to be, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. If we get, street cameras and stuff like that, like they do in London and shit like that, for safety and all that shit. But what I didn't realize at the time, and people were trying to tell me, and that they weren't good at it, and I may not be good at it right now because I'm starting to feel buzzed, is that you have to overhaul the police system first. Let me rephrase that. You have to overhaul the public safety system first. Most calls to police don't need a police officer. They don't need a guy who has a very specific outfit intended via design to be authoritative and imposing. I'm not joking. Like, there has been more and more, there's been plenty, is the word I was looking for. There's been plenty of alterations, changes, etc. as needed over years to make it to where police have, through just the design of the outfit alone, and anybody who's even in the world of fashion understands this, that design emanates certain qualities. You know, broader shoulders, whatever, all that kind of shit, certain cuts, where the seams are and all that shit. It's there to be seen as a position of power. And let me check to make sure I'm not talking to nothing. Okay. It's intimidating. That's literally the point. It's there to intimidate. Having had worn that outfit versus like when I would walk around the office sometimes with normal clothes on. Back when I was a security guard, because I had like cop style outfit, what they call the hard uniform. People treat you different. People think different about you. They act different around you. Many calls to the police do not need the police. They don't need a person showing up with an intimidating visage and a gun and other forms of incapacitation and or killing. Those aren't necessary for the vast majority of phone calls. People were like, oh, well, what happens when, a dude who's cracked down on a PCP and going fucking nuts? You think a fucking public service dude, like some sort of social worker's gonna do better? Yeah. Because they're not there to escalate, they're there to de-escalate. They're not trained by some psychopathic fuckface that every time you get a phone call and go out on the goddamn streets that somebody wants to kill you. It's either Dave or Seth Grossman, whatever the fuck his name is. He trained, he and his sort of class train cops into thinking that it's war on the streets and that when you go out there, people want to fucking kill you and you got to do everything in your power to make sure they don't win. You got to be Han and make sure you shoot first. But the problem is that puts people in a very narrow-minded position, a very narrow-minded state of mentality, a mental state, that instead of trying to talk to people, they're approaching an enemy. It's like they're going to a boss fight. Like, if every interaction you had with the public was basically like, I gotta prep for a boss fight? Like everything is Elden fucking Ring? Do you honestly think that your mentality would keep you in a position of being like, let's have a civil conversation, sir? I'll tell you from first-hand experience, no. I worked as a fucking security guard where 99.999% of my days were uneventful. And even when they were eventful, they weren't. Like, there was a car that would regularly park out in our parking lot. Okay, that is a liability issue. Well, my ass, working in security, being taught by cops, by the way, even though they were pretty decent dudes, I'm still taught by cops because this is what they know. This is how they understand the world. And so I'm getting training from the very same people who are basically saying, and I kid you not, this is a common refrain in that one security class, make sure you get home. If that's how you approach every single day, every single interaction with somebody, and then people were like, oh, well, what about those videos of the guys shooting the cops and stuff? I'm like, yeah, they're outliers, for one. But two, maybe, if, I don't know, the world of the police was reformed and public safety, and I mean all safety, I mean public services, basic income, minimum wage, health care, food, shelter, everything that you need as a human being could be taken care of. If you are an addict, you shouldn't need fucking Kaiser insurance just to be able to go to some place that charges $500 fucking dollars a day. There's a lot of people on the streets doing drugs, but they can't afford treatment because it's not available to them because they're poor. Oh, they choose to do this. They choose, just like everybody chooses to go to work because they have to fucking pay for their house and make sure their fucking kids are paid, and they have gas in the car, and they have lights and water in their fucking house. These are necessities, but they choose to go to work when they shouldn't need to. More and more automation is coming. More and more jobs are going. Yeah, there's going to be some jobs that come up, but not every job is going to, work for everyone. Not everybody's going to be able to do all the jobs that come out. People need a fucking safety net, and we don't have one. Which is why we have rampant poverty, especially in the black community, because we've been like, hey, you guys didn't deserve anything, even though you were slaves, so we're not going to pay you like we said we were. And now, because of 400 years of interest that didn't get paid, you guys are still fucked. And then we're like, well, that's been 400 years. Let's go ahead and just not remember it. Let's move on. Kick the can over to the side. You know what? Let's not even kick the can down the road. Let's pick it up and throw it in the fucking recycling bin. This was supposed to be about plants. But I'm still thinking about this shit. Because every fucking day I'm reminded with shitty cars. And even though they're still better than public transport, they're still shit. And that's the worst part about cars, is that even though they are better, at least in LA, as a form of transportation, because public transit is that bad, there's still terrible ways to get around. And I have a job now that helps to perpetuate that terribleness. I can't get pissed when I'm in traffic. Almost every time I'm in traffic, by the way, I say the snowflake, it never blames itself for the avalanche, because you're not in traffic, you are traffic. You're a reason that traffic, because if you weren't in that car, and let's say you were on a train, or you were on a bus that had 30 people in it, like, you can fit generally maybe 2.5 decent sized cars in the space of a normal bus. And then fill it with like 50 fucking people. Whereas 2 cars, or even 2.5 cars, that's, depending if you're lucky, maybe upward, and we're talking like good numbers, like 20 people. Between 2 to 2.5. That's like if you've got some solid ass spacing in a minivan type situation. But most cars on the road have 1 or 2 people if you're lucky, but mostly 1. And they're poorly designed for the human body, because the human body does not have the evolutionary survival capabilities to be moving at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. We think we do, but we don't. Because if you get into a car wreck at those speeds, even with all the various safety features, you're still getting hurt. And you could still die. But nobody thinks about that shit. Because they're like, well, I'm on my way to work, I gotta make sure well, that's reasonable, especially if you're struggling. I feel you. I'm struggling. Even though I got money to buy booze every now and then. It's just ridiculous. And so the reason I bought the plants is because maybe I need some greenery in my life, and maybe I need some oxygen floating around in my damn house. I don't know. And maybe I'll buy more. But I bought succulents because they're more hardy and I have a better chance of not killing them. plus LA, and so it's out here and it works. Anyway, have fun.